You can only make the accusation of genocide if you deprive the word of its meaning. We all know why you're doing this, appealing to prejudice to win an election. You are better than that.
I note that Michael Gove hasn't answered any of the points in this thread. Let's try again. Answer this. Omer Bartov is Dean's Professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Brown University. He's Israeli-American and a former IDF officer. He has concluded Israel is committing genocide. Is your claim that he has done so to exploit prejudice against his own people?
Owen Jones took offense at Michael Gove's tweet and issued a challenge. Is the war in Gaza a genocide? Owen Jones quotes Omer Bartov, Dean Professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Brown University, to make his case. Today, I will take on Owen Jones' challenge and demonstrate how the war in Gaza is not a genocide and the professor is wrong.
Nora Erakat. But first, we talked to the Israeli-born historian, Brown University professor Omer Bartov, one of the world's leading authorities on genocide.
Israeli political leaders and military leaders have made very startling and frightening statements about Gaza, speaking about flattening Gaza, speaking about moving the entire population of Gaza out of Gaza. That is a clear intention of ethnic cleansing. So those statements show intent, and that's a genocidal intent, which is often very difficult to prove.
All that and more coming up.
The Palestinian institutions stand accused of a long campaign of poisoning the minds of the Palestinian people against Israel and the Jews, and acting in constant terrorist activity, war effort, and hate campaigns against Israel, analogous to Nazi Germany in the 40s. This campaign is not at its core an ethnic liberation or human rights struggle, but an Islamic jihad to destroy any Jewish political authority over lands that jihadists perceive as Islamic. If this radical Islamic movement were not present in Palestinian society, Israel, which is a normal Western-type democracy, wouldn't have been accused of genocide, the same way Sweden is not accused of genocide. If we accept the above statement as true, which very clearly is, then Israel's genocidal intent comes into question. Are Palestinians being targeted for who they are or what they do? What is the level of irredeemable hostility Israeli society must endure before it acts with an overwhelming force? The special conditions of the Palestinian case, which put in doubt the genocidal intent. Palestinian society is sick at its core, with radical Islamic narratives institutionalized by radical Islamist and radical leftist institutions like UNRWA. The Palestinian society is sick at its core as much as Nazi Germany was. Radical Islamic ideology includes concepts like martyrdom, Islamic imperialism, sacrificing their own for the cause. Under this framework, Omer Bartov's or Owen Jones' westernized assertion of what is the appropriate response simply doesn't work. Like in the battle for Berlin, the whole city had to be destroyed because the Nazi ideology was too strong and even children were taking arms against the Allies. In the same way, because of radical Islamic and radical leftist propaganda, Palestinian society, unfortunately, must be radically destroyed and then built up from the roots up, as the world did in Nazi Germany. Unfortunately, radical Islam and the radical left brought the world in this circumstance. To conclude this section, the tragedy radical Islam and the radical left brought in Gaza is not a genocide because it's the appropriate response against these mental diseases. Radical Islam and the radical left are ideological cancers in the human mind that can reach levels where moderated therapy simply doesn't work. Like a cancer patient. Okay, if I give, chemotherapy is very harmful for the cancer patient. We love the cancer patient. And chemotherapy is very harmful for him. But it works. If I give him Depon to the cancer patient, yes, that is the humane thing to do, to give him Depon, but you don't solve the cancer. That is my point. Next, I will refute the claims of Omer Bartov, who holds the position that this is in fact genocide.
My inescapable conclusion has become that Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. Having grown up in a Zionist home, lived the first half of my life in Israel, served in the IDF as a soldier and officer, and spent most of my career researching and writing on war crimes and the Holocaust, this was a painful conclusion to reach, and one that I resisted as long as I could. But I have been teaching classes on genocide for a quarter of a century. I can recognize one when I see one. In the way we normally understand such concepts, Palestinian Gaza as a geographical, political, cultural, human complex no longer exists. Genocide is the deliberate annihilation of a collective or part of it, not all of its individuals. And that's what's happening in Gaza. The result is undoubtedly genocide. The numerous declarations of extermination by senior Israeli government officials and the general exterminating tone of the public discourse, rightly pointed out by Haaretz columnist Carolina Lanzmann, indicate that this was also the intention.
Okay, guys, let's read that, because the professor made an error in the definition of genocide. Okay, he starts saying, in the way we normally understand such concepts, Palestinian Gaza as a geographical, political, cultural, human complex no longer exists. He makes this statement. He noticed that Gaza as a cultural, political, geographical place no longer exists. And that is genocide, he says. And then he goes on and says, and the general exterminating tone of the public discourse indicate that this was also the intention. What? So you separate the intention part from the destruction part, and you say the destruction alone is genocide. And we also have the intention. That is a factual error. These things need to be true together to be a genocide. It cannot be, I saw the destruction, therefore it's a genocide. And then I saw the intent, it's also a genocide. So that is a factual error of the professor. Okay, what can we do now? The professor made a factual error in the definition. The fact that most of the buildings in Gaza are destroyed, and yet in comparison so few casualties, indicates that this was a targeted bombing campaign, unlike Dresden carpet bombing in the Second World War. Still, why all these buildings were destroyed, with the tragic result of Palestinians losing their heritage and big parts of their cultural identity? Because they chose to not capitulate for 2 years, holding hostages, keep attacking, and they chose to ingrain their war infrastructure under civilian infrastructure. It was a war tactic by the Palestinians who sacrificed these things for their jihad, assisted by radical leftists who incentivized them all the way, calling them heroes for what they are doing. Addressing the genocidal statements, the practice of nitpicking statements of Israeli officials in an effort to establish genocidal intent is the wrong approach. When Hitler was making genocidal statements in the German parliament, it was glaringly apparent that he meant what he was communicating, and his audience understood exactly what he was implying. All that in the context of a deeply ideologically rotten society that was receptible to this type of interpretation. That is not comparable with Israeli society, which is exactly like any other modern European type of society. And the statements of Israeli officials that are in a completely different context, and they are addressing a completely different audience. But let's make a comparison to understand what I'm saying.
Am 30. Januar die unter des von 7 Mann zu 12 Millionen emporgewachsene Bewegung einzusetzen zur Rettung des deutschen Volkes und Vaterlandes.
So, in this case, we see Hitler meant what he said. Okay. The audience understood exactly what he said. The audience, the society, is ideologically rotten to be receptible to this type of interpretation. Is the society, not individual. Not a journalist trying to find a statement of Montreich to take it out of context and says, this is a genocide, the Israelis are ready for genocide. This is not how it works. Now, compare that with the most glaring example pro-Palestinian activists put forward, the speech of Netanyahu, who made the reference to the Amalek.
You must remember what Amalek has done to you, says our Holy Bible. And we do remember, and we are fighting. Our brave troops and combatants who are now in Gaza or around Gaza and in all other regions in Israel are joining this chain of Jewish heroes, a chain that has started 3,000 years ago from Joshua ben Nun until the heroes of 1948, the Six-Day War, the 73 October War, and all other wars in this country. Our hero troops, they have one supreme main goal: to completely defeat the murderous enemy and to guarantee our existence in this country. We've always said, never again. Never again. is now.
Okay, so Netanyahu make a reference of the history of the Jewish people and their military achievements. The Amalek, when he made the reference of the Amalek, he wasn't implying the genocidal part, that God commanded them to kill all the males and all the animals. This is not what he was implying. He was implying the same way I would have made a reference of the 300 when Greece is at war. Because then he continued the references. He started with the Amalek, who is a military reference of the Jewish people, historical reference. Then he went to more modern achievements, military achievements. And remember, that is exactly after 710.
So I recommend people actually read the case and follow through a lot of the quotes. That they just don't show genocidal intent. The Israeli Minister of Finance on the 8th of October 2023, this is taken from the ICJ, this is from South African Submission, Bezalel Smotrich, I can't read this, stated, there you go, okay, at a meeting of the Israeli cabinet that, quote, we need to deal a blow that hasn't been seen in 50 years and take down Gaza, end quote. But again, if you click through and you read the source, their own linked source, it says, as per this own source, quote, the powerful finance minister, settler leader Bezalel Smotrich, I can't pronounce this, demanded at the cabinet meeting late Saturday that the army, quote, hit Hamas brutally and not take the matter of the captives into significant consideration, end quote. Quote, in war, as in war, you have to be brutal, end quote. He was quoted as saying, quote, we need to deal a blow that hasn't been seen in 50 years and take down Gaza, end quote. You can't strip the quotation of Hamas, a entity you're at war with, and then pretend that there's genocidal intent. That's not how it's...
That's not genocidal intent.
So when the Ukrainians say we need to do...
Have you heard a statement by the defense minister? The defense minister said, we are going to prevent any food, water, fuel, or electricity from entering Gaza.
Did they do that?
He wanted to make
Did Israel do that?
Okay, no, I'm wondering.
What he said,
I'm asking you.
Isn't Israeli government policy?
But we're talking about statements now, intent. How would you interpret?
Note how Norman Finkelstein, who is a total idiot, his logic, he's a good scholar, he reads too much, but his logic is completely stupid. Okay, I have refuted him countless times. And I recognize the errors in his logic. In this case, for some reason he equates statements with intent, like direct equation. So he intentionally says that intent means statements. What? Intent doesn't mean statements. It's not statements. Intent is a whole context. You cannot nitpick statements and by definition say statements are intent. Okay, so this is a stupid logical error he's doing. Okay, so that was the end. That was an appropriate, complete, conclusive response of the first part of Bartov arguments. Those are refuted. Let's go to his next arguments.
According to the United Nations, 90% of Gaza's population have been displaced from their homes multiple times and are living in subhuman conditions that only increase mortality levels. The murder of children, starvation, destruction of infrastructure, including that of the healthcare system, destruction of most homes, including the erasure of entire neighborhoods and towns, such as Jabalia and Rafah, ethnic cleansing in the northern strip, destruction of all of Gaza's universities and most cultural institutions and mosques, destruction of government and organizational infrastructure, mass graves, destruction of infrastructure for local food production and water distribution. All these paint a clear picture of genocide. Gaza, as a human, national collective entity, no longer exists. This is precisely what genocide looks like.
No, in fact, the war is largely over And the population, although very easily could have been genocided, still stands. The casualties in Gaza are a war type of casualties, not a genocide type of casualties. Even more now that Hamas themselves gave the true numbers of military casualties.
Hamas has lied about casualty figures in every major conflict and later admitted it. After the 2009 Gaza war, Hamas claimed only 48 fighters were killed and 1,300 civilians. Months later, it admitted that 600 to 700 were its own fighters, almost exactly matching Israel's figures. Fast forward to 2018 during the Gaza border riots. Hamas claimed 60 civilians were killed, then it admitted 50 of them were Hamas members after all. This isn't an exception, it's a method. Inflate civilian deaths during the fighting and quietly correct the record afterwards once the damage is done. Hamas is a US and EU designated terrorist organization that live-streamed its barbaric atrocities on October 7th and immediately lied about it. The myth that Hamas's numbers are always accurate, made up. But terrorist data, amplified by UN agencies and NGOs, is fueling the genocide hoax.
So, this is what this guy was saying a year ago. Now, we get this. Look this. Hamas says it will pay stipends to around 50,000 widows of fighters killed by the ADF. So now Hamas admits that 50,000 of the casualties were in fact Hamas. And they will pay the widows. Was he right? He was in fact right. But all that are irrelevant because, as we established in the beginning, even if you throw a nuclear bomb to a place, like what happened in Hiroshima, that's not necessarily a genocide. You need to establish the intent. And in this case, all the casualties was Hamas' fault. If you hold hostages for 2 years, and if you continue the struggle, and if you use all the means possible to put your civilians in danger because you are a martyr cult and you ingrain your military under civilian infrastructure, and your main political strategy is the dead baby strategy. So, to whoever doesn't understand that, Hamas hasn't got a chance comparing to Israel. Their main strategy is to swift global opinion. This is their main military tool. Propaganda is not like a sidekick. Okay, it's their main. What's the word? Anyway, you know what I mean. It's their main military tool. Propaganda is the main military tool. In this context, they gain by sacrificing their people. And this is exactly what they do. So Hamas on purpose puts their civilians in danger. They sacrifice them on purpose so they can make this propaganda and convince the useful idiots like Owen Jones, because that is their main military tool. So in this context, even all the Palestinians, if they died, who's the fault of that? If you, my friend, if you kidnap my daughter and I have a gun and you put your family, all your family in front of you, and I say, give me my daughter. No, I don't give you. And you are torturing my daughter. Give me my daughter. No, I don't give you. Bam, I will kill the first person of your family. Give me my daughter. No, I don't give you. Bam, I will kill your second person of your family. Give me my daughter. No, I don't give you. Bam, I will kill you the third person of your family. What do you think it will happen? This is not genocide, this is suicide. Okay, so that argument is over again. It's their fault for what happened. It's not Israel's fault because they were given... Guys, it's very simple. An army that cares about its citizens surrenders. France, okay, in World War II, to protect not even its citizens, it's the city, to protect the France for not being destroyed, all the monuments and all this kind of stuff, surrendered to Hitler. If France, why is that? Because France cared about its culture and its citizens. That's a very good example. So France surrendered to Hitler because it cared about their culture. Hamas don't care about their culture, which in fact, Hamas are jihadists. You think Hamas cares about liberty, the Palestine? Look, the Palestinian ethnic identity, who was invented in the 60s, jihadists don't care about ethnic identities. In Islam, ethnic identities are haram. They laugh with this stuff. If they take power, they will destroy anything ethnic identity of Palestinians. They are jihadists. The only ethnic cultural identity they have is Islam. Maybe the mullahs in Iran care about the ethnic identity of Persians. No, they destroyed the ethnic identity of Persians completely. Maybe in Afghanistan cared about the ethnic identity. No, maybe ISIS in Palmyra cared about the ethnic identity of Syrians. What are you talking about? It has nothing to do heritage, ethnic identity. Exactly because these people don't care about their ethnic identity, who was invented in the 60s. That's why they sacrifice all the city and all the civilians for their jihad. So even if all Palestinians died in this war, whose fault is that? Thank you very much.